last week, one guy that they were missing so much in all of this was Francisco Alvarez. And last week, he returned to the team after being out since April 19th with a thumb injury, which proved to be just what the Mets needed, quite frankly. The team is 18-2 in games this season where Alvarez plays, which is just absurd when you really think about it. So, Pat, did you notice a shift in the clubhouse when Alvarez returned?
100%. And you could feel it when he went on that rehab assignment that they felt like the reinforcements that they were looking for were beginning to come. Frankly, you can't teach what Francisco Alvarez has. I mean, he has unbelievable physical talents. They're just off the charts, but his intangibles are different. For a kid that's in his early 20s and his now second full season in the big leagues, the way that he steps in and impacts a lineup and impacts a pitching staff, it's different. You can't just create that. It's something that you naturally have. And the way that he just exudes confidence and energy, it makes him such an impactful player. Even if he wasn't necessarily hitting that first week that he came back, now he is obviously with the back-to-back 3-hit games against Texas. And I just think that he deepens the lineup so much. Now, Tomas Nido really did a solid job filling in, and then, it's a whole new catching tandem for the Mets. But Francisco Alvarez is just a different player, and he is just going to continue to get better. He is so positive. He brings so much energy. And I think guys just feed off that, because when you have a player that it just wants to win nonstop, it forces the players around him to also kind of latch on to that positive energy that he has.
Yeah, his impact is undeniable. Danny, what do you think the Mets missed more? Do you think it's his bat or his presence behind the plate?
I think they missed everything equally. None of the guys who were filling in had the power potential of Alvarez. None of them scared opposing pitchers. And like Pat said, even when he's not going well, he has a chance to just really, really hurt you every time he's up the plate. He's got a confidence that really is unmatched. None of the backups who were filling in had the rapport Alvarez has with the pitching staff. And this is something that's been, one of his biggest assets since last year. He's got a great rapport with the pitching staff, and we've heard them singing his praises since he returned. And the guys who were filling in for him didn't have his personality and his swagger. So, I think Alvarez is just a very special kind of guy, special hitter, special player, special personality.
Yeah, special is the perfect word to describe him. Now on to the other Francisco on the roster, Francisco Lindor. He's really found his stride since moving into the leadoff spot, hitting a .297 with an .879 OPS since that switch. Danny, you wrote an article recently about Lindor saying the shortstop is really damn good, whether you like it or not. Please explain.
All right. So I think there's a segment of the fan base that has an irrational dislike for Lindor. Can't be backed up by stats, can't be backed up by reality. And they seem to have an issue with how much he's getting paid. They claim he's not worth the money. They claim he's not the player the Mets thought they were getting when they traded for him and extended him. But if you look at Lindor's numbers offensively throughout his career, he's been nearly identical offensively to the player he was in Cleveland. So just have to look at it. It cannot be disproved. He's not a 40 homer guy. He's not Shohei Ohtani. He's not Aaron Judge. He doesn't have to be, and no one is. He's one of the most valuable players in baseball. And people totally disregard the value he brings defensively, which is just insane. This is one of the very best defensive players in the game. The value he brings at shortstop is immense. And beyond the offense, beyond the defense, this is a team leader. This is a guy who plays basically every day. He played last year through an injury. He plays through injuries all the time. So I just think that the lack of respect he gets is mind-boggling.
Yeah, some of his defensive plays are absolutely incredible. Pat, Lindor led off in Cleveland, but didn't find himself in that spot with the Mets until now. Why do you think it took so long for them to try this out?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with Brandon Nimmo being their prototypical leadoff hitter, and they wanted to leave Nimmo in the leadoff spot for as long as they could. And Lindor does have great run producing abilities, so he's able to drive in runs when guys are getting on ahead of him. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But I tell you what, he's got a flair for the dramatics, and for him to be able to step in and set the table in the leadoff spot, I think it's really important. If you look to the last couple of games, yesterday he didn't get on to start the game, and I had to flip back just to check how many consecutive games he had led off with either a walk or a base hit. And the Mets have talked so much about putting traffic on for the big guys in the middle of the lineup, which is something that they weren't doing early on. So I think the fact that Lindor is able to do that means that he's going to be in the leadoff spot for the time to come, just because he's been so impactful out of that spot. And, I think they wanted him in the middle of the lineup for as long as they could because he can drive in so many runs. But for the time being, he's thriving in that spot. And since then, his numbers have been fantastic. And it's kind of like what Danny said, that he posts up every single day. He's constantly answering questions from the media. He never shies away from the spotlight. And he's such an impactful player for this team. And he brings so much off the field as well. Talking about Francisco Alvarez, we talked about the intangibles. Lindor's the same way. He is a leader for this club. Guys listen to him. And he called that team meeting a couple of weeks ago, and he's backed it up, and the entire club has backed it up. So, the numbers aren't great overall for Lindor, but it's going to take a really long time to dig out of that hole that he was in with that 1-for-36 start. But with the way the shortstop position is lining up right now in the National League, we could be talking about Francisco Lindor making an all-star team in July. That's how good he's been.